Welcome back to another teaching video. In this one, we're going to talk about protecting the we. Protecting the we. What the heck does that mean? What we're talking about is protecting our relationship. All right. If we think about this in the context of a marriage, what we're talking about is there's her, there is me, and then there is we. Okay. A lot of times when we're doing relational recovery work, we don't think about how to protect the we. We don't think about, like, what does it mean to protect the integration of the two of us. We'll talk sometimes about, like, what are the boundaries I need to protect the marriage, and that's good. That's a good thing. But that still doesn't get to the deeper layer but what we're talking about is integration and, like, the merging of these two individuals into this greater thing that is the marriage. Okay, the we. And I think about this in our quadrants concept. Okay, think about this in our quadrants concept. So here's where I'm going. This is mind, heart, body, soul. Everybody's familiar with that at this point. The way that I deal with myself holistically as an individual affects how I protect our integration relationally. Let me say that again. The way that I deal with myself individually protects the way that we're integrated relationally. Okay, so I'm going to walk through this so you can understand it. First off, my mind. If I allow my thoughts to go to places and ruminate on things that sort of vilify my wife, that allow critical thoughts of her, and there's a difference between thinking about how I feel hurt by her versus criticizing or demeaning her, right? Demeaning thoughts. The way that I protect my mind in terms of comparing or contrasting her with other people, right? Some of us, we got a bad habit of allowing our mind to sort of go to this place where we compare her to the woman at the office. We contrast her with so-and-so's wife. Or we compare or contrast her to some, like, image that we've built up in our mind, some construct of what a woman should be or shouldn't be that we built up in our mind. And when we allow ourselves to do these things, to think this way, what we're doing is allowing the fabric of our relationship to start to shred. And we have to protect the we. We have to protect the we. It's not just that, and don't miss this, vilifying her and being critical and demeaning of her in my mind, that's not something I should do because I'm called to more than that. We are called to more than that, first and foremost. But second, we got to realize that we're actually shredding our relationship when we allow ourselves to think these types of things. And there are other things at your house, in your mind that if I allow myself to think that, if I go down that path in my mind, I'm causing disintegration. I'm starting to shred the fabric of our relationship. Okay? So we gotta pay attention to what's going on in our minds, our hearts. For some of us, we deal with anger. Okay, anger's a natural emotion, right? We know it's biblical to have righteous anger. Some of us, we use anger as a front for other things: hurt, fear, failure, shame, disappointment, embarrassment, etc. Here's the thing. If I don't let myself feel some of my anger, that stuff's going to get bottled up. And the more I bottle that up, the more chance there is that I'm going to take it out on someone I love, like my wife. So not dealing well with my anger, allowing myself to feel my anger, not doing that is starting to strain the fabric of our relationship. I have to healthily process the emotion that is anger in order to keep the integration and protect the we. The flip side of that is I also have to have some limits on how I handle my anger. I got to let myself feel it, but I can't go too far, because if I go to that place, anger, where I'm taking it out on her, I'm shredding us. Okay, I'm shredding us. So I gotta deal with that emotion appropriately. Sorrow or sadness. Okay, I gotta allow myself to feel sadness when I'm dealing with grief of something major in our lives. I have to feel that, because if I stuff it, I'll medicate it. And if I medicate it, I'm shredding us. I'm fraying the fabric of our relationship. However, I can't let my sadness go too far. I'll sink into a depression. If I let myself sink into that place where I go into like Eeyore mode and I just mope around because I can't pull out of it, I'm fraying us. I'm shredding us. My ability to deal with my emotions and what's going on in my heart is not just me being healthy, it's also protecting the we of our relationship. Okay? The flip side of that, joy or feeling happy. Positive emotions, those are awesome, great, yay, let's feel those. I could take that too far. I need to allow myself to experience joy and happiness and have good days, yay. And I also can't take that too far, because if I go too far, I'll do things in my happiness and joy where I start to get a little bit careless, a little bit reckless, kind of flippant. I'll get cavalier about how I'm living. And that shreds us. Right? So how I deal with my own heart isn't just for me. It's also a matter of protecting we. Okay? Spiritually, like where am I with God? Am I following through on my disciplines, let's just say? Am I consistently in prayer and in the Word? Okay, those things are really important for me. And every time I balk at that, every time I blow that off, every time I'm pulling back from God, I'm hurting the we. That's not just about me. That's also about we. Okay? Whether or not I'm following through on my call. Right? I don't know what your call is in your life, but I'm thinking like my call as a parent, my call as a leader of Redemptive Living. Like, what is the call that God has put on my life? My purpose, right? Am I being faithful to what that call is? That's important for me. That's also a we thing, okay? And then physically, what I'm doing with my body, right? Am I being healthy? Meaning, am I exercising and eating right? Because how I'm treating my body isn't just about me. How I treat my body is a function of we. I'm actually harming our relationship when I don't treat my body right. If I'm eating a bunch of junk food, okay, well, is that wrong sometimes? No. If I'm doing that consistently, I'm hurting myself, and I'm also hurting us. If I'm balking at exercise, right? If I'm not dealing with medical stuff, all right? Maybe for you know that if you don't take your depression medication or your bipolar medication, you're going to start to get a little bit wonky. And when you get wonky, you fray y'all. And that starts to shred y'all's relationship. It's not that it like takes a big axe and chops it in half and all of a sudden we're massively disconnected, but it erodes it subtly and slowly for a lot of us. Right? Or medically, what if I'm not taking care of myself, in terms of a medical sense? Like, I need to go take care of getting a cavity filled, right? Or getting my regular exam, or see what that knot is that I have on my shoulder, whatever that is. Like that thing that you just kind of balk at and blow off, and it's like, I don't want to have to deal with that right now. I don't have time, and I'm busy, and who knows what the consequences of that are, so I'm going to ignore it. Because if I ignore it, it'll go away. That's how I operate sometimes. That's not just a me thing. That's a we thing. That's a we thing, okay? So I want you to just conceptually see that part of our responsibility as husbands and part of our recovery is protecting the we in a holistic sense, because how I deal with me affects we, okay? This is also part parcel. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second too. This is also part parcel connected to sexual integrity and betrayal. Because if I'm doing a really good job of protecting us, I'm not putting myself in harm's way of pornography and affairs and whatever else your thing is. Right? This is central to recovery and redemption, because I didn't protect we very well in my acting out, in my addiction, etc. And now recovery and redemption says I actually focus on that. For a lot of us, we've just been the center of our own universe for a long time. Like things have been orbiting around us. And I make this distinction. I don't think it's so much that we're selfish. For a lot of guys that struggle with sexual integrity issues, it's not that we're so selfish, it's that we're more self-centered. It's not so much that I'm always thinking about me at someone else's expense. It's that I'm just not thinking about other people. You see what I'm saying? Hopefully you can see the distinction there. It's not so much that I'm just a selfish individual, although some of us are really selfish. Join the club, right? But it's more than I'm self-centric. I'm self-focused. I just don't look at other people as much, their needs, their wants, the impact on them. All right? And so focusing on we, protecting the we, is getting out of that self-centered mindset and looking outward. Okay? So where else this breaks down? Where else we can be mindful of it for opportunity to grow, protecting the we. Think about these things. All right, money. How you deal in money? So some of y'all know I don't carry cash. I haven't carried cash in 15 years, 18 years. Anytime somebody gives me cash, I normally just like put it in a drawer at home, or throw it in my bag, or I'll give it to Shelly later, or make a deposit, or whatever. I just don't carry cash. Even right now, if you open my wallet, I've got, I got the receipts, but I have no cash. Me carrying cash has been a boundary for a long time. Early on, we put that in place just for part of our recovery, because we could track every dollar that went on a credit card, and I wasn't very good at keeping up with receipts, so I stopped carrying cash. How I deal with money today is either protecting us or disintegrating us. If I'm walking around with cash, and Shelley knows that, my integrity may not be in jeopardy these days because I have cash in my wallet. It's not. But for her, she may question, what's going to happen with that money in his wallet? That could be a question that comes up in her mind. And if that question comes up, there's probably a little bit of fear that comes up, and now we're disintegrating. Now the fabric is fraying at that point. Okay? Maybe it's the difference between spend and save. Maybe you need to do a better job at home of having conversations about how much we're spending versus how much we're saving, because when you flippantly spend and she's feeling fearful and wanting to save, that frays y'all. Or vice versa. Maybe you're the one that's tight and trying to be on point with the money, and she's just randomly spending. I found a good deal on whatever it was. And like the conversations that go with that are really important, because if you're not having those conversations, there's just tension around the money, and it's fraying y'all. Okay? Protecting the we means I'm mindful of what's going on between us as it pertains to money. Time, how I spend my time. This is both the intentional time that I have filled, like work and running kids to ball games and whatever your thing is, taking care of your elderly parents. But this is also the free time. What are you doing with your free time? Because your free time is either, like, think of it this way, hurting y'all or protecting y'all. And which leads us to our hobbies. Maybe what you do in your free time is your hobbies. Maybe you're into, golf or guns, or you like building model airplanes, or I don't know. I can't remember what the thing is now. What's the ice thing where they push the little puck down and the guys are sweeping, cheese or something. I can't remember. Anyway, I don't know what your hobby is. My point is, you got to think about, does my hobby and how I engage it, is that a matter of like connecting us and protecting our we, protecting our unity, or is that starting to disintegrate us? Either because of the thing itself, because of the time I spend, because of what it represents. I don't know. You got to really think about that. Okay? Work. Who you are at work, what you do at work, how you operate at work, what your work is. You got to run it through that filter. Same thing with parenting. Your friendships, your family relationships. Right now, there may be a season in your life where you need to take a break from hanging out with your brother. Because just the very nature of being with him starts to fray y'all. It's not a lot of trust that's built when you're hanging out with him. And you love him, and he loves you, and y'all are friends, and you're going to be brothers for a lifetime. But you may need a season where you dial back a little bit, because it's fraying y'all if you don't. And there may be friendships that are that same way. I don't know what it is at your house. This is just a different framework to think through. Am I protecting us? Am I protecting we? Two kind of practical examples of this. not practical examples, just ways to think about it, okay? These are kind of ways that I think about it at my house. So the first is, there was a movie, it was called The Program, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. I'm not a big movie guy. And in this movie, it was about a football team. The running back kept fumbling, right? He'd always fumble the ball. And so eventually the coach gave him the ball and said, you carry this with you, everywhere you go. I'm probably getting it a little wrong, but you'll get the point. Carry this with you everywhere you go and don't ever fumble. And the rest of the guys on the team are trying to make him fumble. And random people in class can try and make him fumble. So he's always walking around holding this ball, right? And he's always on the lookout, making sure he's protecting that ball. And people will come up and swat it, and he's like, nope, right? He's going to the lunchroom, right? He's eating, but he's holding on to that ball, That's the same thing I picture with we. Like, we is this thing that I'm protecting. I'm holding on to that. Even when I'm sitting, eating my burrito, eating my tacos, right? I still got one finger of the tip of that ball. I got that thing tucked in. I'm like, I'm not letting anybody knock this out of my hand. I'm protecting our relationship, our we. Okay? So hold on to that thing. Okay? The other thing that I think about, and this just means this is meaningful for me to conceptualize, and it may or may not be for you. I hope it's helpful for you. If you picture a bungee cord, like a really long bungee cord that's connected from my heart to my wife's heart, from your heart to your wife's heart, right? Picture that thing, goes in here and comes out the back, okay? That kind of thing. As we walk out the door in the morning, like we get in our car and we drive to work, right? Like the bungee cord is tightening, 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 tightening. Think about if you get on a plane and go 3 hours on a 3-hour flight across the country, like that thing is tightening, tightening. And conceptualize, the way I want you to think about this is like when that thing is really taut, like there's a strain on it. And think about that connection between us, there's a strain there. And I want to always be aware of that tension. I want to always be aware that like that cord is back there kind of pulling me back towards home, pulling me back towards her heart. And every step that I take forward, I'm having to kind of move against that. There's always a tension pulling it back. Right? The other thing is when that thing's stretched really, really tight, like every flick of the bungee cord on this end reverberates back to that end. Right? Which means every move that we make reverberates back to her. And some of those reverberations will either communicate safety and security, or they'll communicate fear and anxiety, insecurity. And think of it in this way. When that thing's stretched tight, the way you think has even more reverberation. The way that you feel and manage your emotions has even more reverberation. Your disciplines has even more reverberations. How you deal with your physical body has even more reverberations. Like I want you to conceptualize that everything you do, say, touch, feel, think, eat, and drink, everything about your life is a function of that connection between the two of y'all, and protecting the we that's part of our responsibility. That's part of our recovery and our redemption. Okay? Hopefully that all makes sense. See y'all soon.